World Network. And today's topic is censoring ourselves. And we're going to talk about how we're often inclined to muzzle our joy, um, muffle our laughter and playfulness out of fear of judgment from others, and all these ways we contort ourselves, largely due to our own projection of what someone else might say or think. So it should be an interesting conversation, but before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you joining us this morning. And welcome to everybody else who's with us. And today we're talking about censoring ourselves, or not censoring ourselves so much. Maybe not censoring ourselves. Well, there's probably, okay, so this conversation came about because I was talking with a friend, and they were talking about how they felt reluctance with their partner to just turn on music and dance like a fool, like a good fool, a playful fool, um, kind of like the innocence of a fool, not a foolish, stupid fool, not like that, but to just be able to dance and cavort and play and sing, and that they were reticent to do this because they were afraid that their partner would think they were stupid or silly, or that would judge them in some way or another. So what they did was they projected this fear around judgment, and therefore shut themselves down, censored themselves, and didn't dance and sing and play, or do the goofy celebration things that they wanted to do, particularly right now in light of the holidays. And I think that this is probably something that's really common, that many of us find ourselves censoring our authentic expression of playfulness, joyfulness, goofiness, out of fear of judgment. And we preempt ourselves where we're doing a lot of self-censoring based on our fabrication. And so this person mustered some courage and just did it anyway. Just, was reclaiming their goofy playfulness. And it actually was well received, which was shocking to them. Like they initially they didn't they had a lot of angst about turning on holiday music because they thought their partner would Grinch it, so to speak. And that wasn't the case at all. Their partner actually was enjoying it. And after they had turned off the music and left, their partner turned it back on while they were gone. So what the lesson here is that we often presume there's multiple lessons actually. We often presume we know what another person is thinking, for one, when we don't. And then that person can surprise us when we communicate authentically. And another is being so concerned about what somebody else thinks that we're not going to express ourselves authentically. And I think that this reaches into so many different levels of our existence, from the way we present ourselves in the world, what we wear, the way we speak, the the way we choose to look, the whether it's our hair or our clothes or whatever, that we often will dim down our light in deference to others. And this notion of not shining so brightly in order to somehow be respectful of others, or to not engender whatever might arise because we're shining brightly, is kind of a sad state of affairs. We came here, each of us, with our own light. And as far as I can tell, it's our purpose to shine that light brightly. And rather than outshining others, that light can encourage others to shine their light as well. Like we don't have to use our light as a way to make others less than. We can use our light as something to encourage others to burn brightly too. And what if we lived in a world where we were all shining our brilliant light? It would be a better world if we gave ourselves the opportunity to come into our fullest and highest expression and share that light, not as something that we need to be apologetic about. How sad is that, to feel that we need to tone ourselves down because not everybody else has that same expression. So I guess bottom line, the invitation here is If you got a song to sing, sing it, right? If you have a dance in that is asking to be expressed, dance it. And so what if people think we're goofy? It's okay. If, some people might think you're goofy and other people will just relish and delight in your playfulness, and it might inspire them to play. But why squash your own soul's expression? It's kind of like, well, I'm going to do it before anybody else gets to. And I'm going to put a leash on myself before anybody else gets to harness me. And we actually see that right now in government, where there are people that are um, preemptively complying with something that they don't agree with, just out of fear. It's kind of crazy. What do? We project, and then we believe that our projection is reality, and then we act in accordance with that perceived reality. And what do we end up with? We end up with many, many dimmed lights in all kinds of fronts. And it's kind of a form of insanity, right? It does expose the fact that our reality is projected, that we conceptualize things, we interpret things, and then act as if they're real, and then bring them into manifestation, and then blame others for that kind of behavior. So that's what was happening with this friend, is they were blaming their partner for being a killjoy, when in fact they were manufacturing all this stuff internally and modifying their own behavior and their own choices, then feeling suppressed and then blaming the other person. And if you look at it, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Kind of nutsy to live like that. And yet that's what we do. It's like we'll think about a situation, we'll create this whole scenario around it, we'll make all kinds of assumptions about the other person or the other people, we'll then start believing that all that's real, and then we act accordingly. Like we can create entire arguments with people in our minds that are complete fabrication, that never happened, and then we'll be angry at the other person. It's like having a dream about somebody doing something and then being angry at them when you wake up because they did something in a dream that was your dream. It's and that's not something that's unheard of, that whole scenario, but it's a little bit nuts, right? So this notion of self censorship, it goes beyond regulation. It goes beyond self-regulation to something much deeper. And what's at the root of that? What is it that is validating or justifying that self-censorship is typically fear. Typically fear of judgment, fear of embarrassment. And what if we just didn't care so much what other people thought? What might be possible for us if we just didn't invest ourselves so fully in other people's opinions? Like, to be able to be respectful, but at the same time, not have to feel or not put ourselves in a position where we feel prejudged. So, for instance, if I'm afraid of how people might judge me, then who's doing the judging? I'm judging myself, right? It's like, okay, if people judge me, they judge me. We judge each other all the time, one way or another. And I can acknowledge that there are situations where where it can be beneficial to be aware of how we might be perceived, or being aware of our behavior and being aware of consequences of our behavior. But at the same time, I think we need to be respectful of our own expression, of our own authenticity, and to allow that we all have our own expression. Somehow I think that as we become more self-accepting, what I've seen is as we become more self-accepting, we're more accepting of others. And I'm not saying that people don't judge and that they can't be harsh. They can. And that there can't be consequences. There can be consequences for unbridled expression. And they're not always beneficial. They're not always bad, though. And when we are self-censoring, I think it's important to look at what's going on. What's going on? Why are we dimming our light? And I mean, there are times when we might be angry. It's not appropriate to act out. There may be ways to be expressing that upset, maybe not in that moment. Maybe we need to take a beat, right? But when we throw water on or quench our fire, when we dim our light, our vitality, our joy, in deference to somebody else, who does that serve? And then if we then have resentment toward them because we chose to dim our own light, look at that cycle of behavior. We need bright lights in the world right now. And yes, sometimes people will be envious, and as a result of that envy, will try to dim the light for you. That can happen. That can happen. And maybe it's good then to find other people, but it does to be around that appreciate that light, or to help that other person cultivate their own light so that they don't have that jealousy. But Why would we kill ourselves off in deference to somebody else's limits, let alone our anticipation of their limits, right? I recognize that sometimes it's not easy to shine your light when the people around you aren't supportive of it. But to preemptively not shine your light because of what somebody else might say, like maybe we can use our light to help others rise or to give other people permission to shine theirs. The bottom line is, if you're feeling joyful or playful, why not? Why not? I don't know that there are that many situations that wouldn't benefit from that kind of light. And so if there's any gift that we can give ourselves, I think it's the gift of embracing ourselves, embracing our uniqueness, embracing our light, and feeding that light, and feeding the light in others. Your light doesn't dim mine. We have this notion of comparison rather than celebration. And the comparison comes from this notion of greater than, less than. You know, if you're better, I'm worse. Or if I'm better, if I'm brighter, you're dimmer. It's just that we all have different light. And we don't have to make these comparisons. We don't have to cultivate jealousies. We can embrace possibility. You know, some people who are shining their light are shining it as the way that we can see it is, oh, wow, that's available for me too. You know, thank you for showing me that that's possible, rather than that person is so much more or better, or that person's a threat, so I have to tear them down somehow. We can rise to our own expression. We can use the examples of others as inspiration and invitation, rather than something that we feed ourselves messages about being less than around. We don't have to do that. If we appreciate something in someone else, why not just be able to celebrate it? It's no damage to me that you're a star. Why can't I just enjoy that and appreciate that? As I feel whole in myself, I'm better able to really appreciate the expression of others and celebrate it. It's we who ultimately make ourselves less than. Even if we've received messages that we were less than in our lives, there's a point at which we get to choose whether we embrace those messages or we recreate our sense of self to defy that. And I'm not saying it's easy, because so many of us are conditioned into believing that we're not good enough. And then believing that we're not good enough, the comparisons that we make to others, and we may have been compared to others a lot in our lives and told that we're not good enough or that we're less than. Coming out of that is not an easy thing, but we don't have to believe it. And I challenge each of us to recognize that we are each, every one of us, a unique light in the world, and that we all belong here just by virtue of the fact that we're here, that we don't have to prove anything, regardless of what people might tell you about how you should be proving yourself. What if we're just enough as we are? What if we are worthy of being here and we don't have to prove a darn thing? What would life be like? And I think that's a worthy exploration for all of us. If I don't have to prove anything and I don't need your approval. Now, obviously, there are situations in our structures of living where we do need certain approval. But we can be taking that way too far. And so the gift of this moment is to receive our enoughness, that we are enough exactly as we are, without anything else, without having to prove ourselves further. Then what's possible? If we know that we are enough, what might be possible for us? So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share me and Enlightened World Network. The links are in the description. And as always, it's a gift to have the opportunity to muse together about what it is to be human. So until next time, so much love to you.